It was a normal Tuesday night. Or at least I thought it was. We'd just put the kids to bed. Lily, who's 13 and all sarcasm and eye rolls, and Ethan, 10, a little sponge for anything related to video games. My wife, Sarah, had been acting weird for a couple of weeks, distracted and glued to her phone. But I just wrote it off as work stress. She works at some big corporation, has for about 3 years now. Her boss, Mark, a guy in his early 40s, was all she ever talked about lately. Mark said this. Mark thinks that, you know how it goes. You never think anything of it until you do. Anyway, she sits me down in the living room. Her hands are shaking and she's messing with her wedding ring. And I'm thinking, oh God, someone died or she's sick. But no, she takes a deep breath and starts talking about how we've grown apart and how she wants to expand our connection. My brain just short-circuited. I had no idea what she was talking about. So I asked her. That's when she dropped the bomb. She has feelings for someone else and thinks we should have an open marriage. The way she said someone else made it clear there was a specific person. I immediately thought of Mark. I asked her point blank if it was him, and she got all defensive. It doesn't matter who it is, she said. But her face was bright red, and she couldn't look me in the eye. I knew. I just knew. I told her absolutely not. If she wanted to be with someone else, we needed to get a divorce. She panicked, saying she didn't want that she loved me and wanted our family to stay together. But the whole time, all I could think was that she wanted to have her cake and eat it too. She was so ready with all these rules and boundaries and stories about how other couples make it work. It was all a bunch of garbage. She was basically asking for my permission to cheat without the consequences. The conversation lasted for hours. She was crying, saying she never meant for this to happen, that she just wanted us both to be happy. But all I heard was a woman trying to get my blessing to sleep with her boss. When I asked if she'd already had physical contact with him, she paused just long enough for me to know the answer was a lie. I told her I needed time to think, and she said she understood. But then she hugged me and whispered that she really hoped I'd consider it. The whole thing felt like a performance. The next morning, she was acting like nothing had happened, making breakfast for the kids, talking about their homework. I felt like I was in a bad movie. I couldn't focus at work. My coworker even asked if I was okay because I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I wanted to tell someone, but I felt this deep shame, like I wasn't man enough for my own wife. That night, she made my favorite dinner and was overly affectionate, laughing at things that weren't even funny. It was so fake and manipulative I wanted to scream. She brought it up again, with her phone full of articles about successful open marriages. She was trying to sell me on it, but all I could see was that she was already emotionally cheating and now wanted my permission to make it physical. I finally told her again, no, and that I was leaving for a few days to clear my head. She freaked out, said I was overreacting, but I was done talking. Every word out of her mouth was just more proof that she'd already made her decision. I packed a bag while she followed me around the house, pleading with me. She said she still loved me, but I kept thinking, you don't ask to sleep with other people if you truly love your spouse. I drove to a hotel, feeling like I was in a dream. An hour later, there was a knock at the door, and I knew it was her. I let her in, not wanting a scene in the hallway, and she started in on a long speech. She'd made a mistake bringing it up and didn't really want an open marriage. But then she said she couldn't promise her feelings for this other person would go away. Maybe we could compromise? I asked her what kind of compromise. She actually suggested she could have an emotional relationship with him, but be physically faithful to me. I just laughed. It was the most insane thing I'd ever heard. I told her she was already having an emotional affair, and asking for permission to continue it was not a compromise. She got mad, saying she was being honest, that she deserved credit for not just cheating behind my back. That's when I knew she was gone. She thought she deserved a gold star for giving me a heads up before she cheated. We argued for another hour, and she kept trying different angles. Finally, I told her she had to leave. She cried and begged. But when I asked her if she was willing to cut off all non-work contact with her boss and transfer departments, she said it wasn't fair. She shouldn't have to give up her career. That's when it hit me. She'd already chosen him over me and our marriage. Everything else was just her trying to have it both ways. I'm sitting here in this hotel room, writing this, with no idea what to do. Part of me wants to fight for my marriage, but the other part knows it's already over. I keep thinking about the kids, about how this will affect them. I just wish I knew if I was making the right decision. 2 to 3 months later. It's been a while, but a lot has happened. After I posted my last update, I stayed at that hotel for a week. Sarah kept pushing to save the marriage. But every time I brought up her cutting off contact with Mark, she had some excuse about why it wasn't practical or fair. She said they worked too closely, that it would be obvious to everyone if she started avoiding him, and she couldn't risk her job over this. I told her she should have thought about that before she developed feelings for her married boss, but she just said I was being harsh and that people can't control who they fall for. I eventually went back home because I missed the kids, and staying in a hotel forever wasn't an option, but I made it clear to her that we were separated, even if we were living under the same roof. We told the kids we were going through a tough time, and I could see how confused and scared they were. About 3 weeks ago, Sarah came home from work looking completely distraught. I knew something had happened. She was quiet all through dinner, and I could tell she was working up to something. After the kids went to bed, she asked to talk. I thought she was going to tell me Mark had left his wife for her and she was filing for divorce. But no, she told me she'd been fired. My brain couldn't process it at first. When I asked her what happened, she burst into tears and said she'd made a mistake. Mark had reported her to HR for inappropriate behavior. He had rejected her completely, saying he was dedicated to his marriage and that her advances were unacceptable. She had ruined our marriage for a guy who didn't even want her. She'd thrown away 15 years for a fantasy that was never real. She was vague about the details, but from what I could gather, she had basically confessed her feelings and proposed a relationship, which led to her getting canned. The next few weeks were hell. She was dealing with unemployment and rejection, and she expected me to be there to comfort her through this crisis she created herself. She kept saying how stupid she was, how she should have appreciated what she had with me. But every time she talked about it, it was clear she was more upset about Mark rejecting her than about our marriage. What really got to me was when she started calling me selfish for not being more supportive. When I went on a pre-planned ski trip with my brother, she got upset and said I'd abandoned her when she needed me most. I told her I wasn't her husband anymore and wasn't responsible for soothing her through the consequences of her own decisions. She fired back that my selfishness was exactly why she looked for an emotional connection elsewhere. I had to leave the room before I said something I'd regret. The kids are getting caught in the middle. Lily asked me why I wasn't being nicer to her mom, and Ethan has been asking if we're getting a divorce. Sarah has been crying in front of them, and I can tell they think I'm the bad guy. Yesterday, Lily told me her mom said she lost her job because of office politics and that she needs my help. She didn't understand why I was being so cold. I wanted to tell her the truth, but I couldn't put that on a 13-year-old girl. Lily then told me that her mom was really sorry for whatever she did and that everyone deserves another chance. Hearing my daughter defend her mother and basically ask me to forgive her for trying to cheat on me with her boss was one of the most heartbreaking moments of my life. Sarah has started talking about marriage counseling, saying she'll do whatever it takes to fix things. But I know she's only saying this now because her plan with Mark failed so horribly. I'm almost certain if he had been interested, she would have filed for divorce without a second thought. And now she wants me to pretend none of this happened. My brother says to divorce her. My sister says to try counseling for the kids' sake. I'm stuck in limbo. I need to make a decision soon. But I just can't tell the difference between genuine remorse and regret that her plan didn't work out. Final update. The divorce is final. It's been over 8 months since all this began, and 6 months since I filed. It wasn't as simple as my lawyer thought. Sarah went back and forth on a lot of things, even after we'd agreed on them. But we finally came to an agreement. The kids, Lily and Ethan, are with me during the week and with Sarah on weekends. So far, it seems to be working. Telling the kids was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. We decided to be honest with them, explaining that their mom had feelings for someone else and we couldn't fix our problems. Lily took it hard. At first, she blamed me for not forgiving her mom, but she's starting to understand that some things can't be fixed with a simple apology. Ethan was mostly just confused, asking if he could do anything to help mom and dad fall back in love. Both of them are seeing a counselor, and they're adjusting better than I expected. Sarah struggled a lot, emotionally and financially. She tried to use the kids to guilt me into changing my mind, telling them how unhappy she was living alone. For a while, Lily would ask me every day if we could get back together. I had to have some painful conversations with them about how parents sometimes make decisions that hurt their families, and that while we both love them more than anything, we can't be married anymore. The whole process was like watching Sarah spiral. After the divorce was finalized, she had a hard time finding a new job, and I think the reality of losing both Mark and our marriage hit her harder than she anticipated. She called me several times, crying, asking if we could try again. I had to keep reminding her that too much had happened, but she's doing better now. About 3 months ago, she got a new job. She seems more stable, and she stopped talking about reconciliation, which makes co-parenting a lot easier. The kids are adapting to our new routine, and even though they're sad that our family is different, they're doing well. As for me, I'm working on rebuilding my life. I started therapy a few months ago, and it's been incredibly helpful. I realized I spent so much time wondering if I was being rational or fair that I lost sight of the fact that her behavior was just genuinely terrible. Regardless of her intentions, I'm not dating yet. I need to focus on my kids and on healing. But I'm hopeful that someday, I'll find someone who genuinely wants to be with me. I wanted to share this one last time because so many of you offered support during the worst time of my life. It's possible to get through something like this and come out stronger on the other side. It doesn't feel like it in the moment, but you can. The cosmic retribution for Sarah was both poetic and swift. A self-inflicted wound born of her own hubris and selfishness. Her insatiable desire for validation, her belief that she could manipulate a man into accepting her infidelity, led directly to her downfall. After losing her marriage and her career in a spectacular fashion, she was left with nothing but the apartment she could barely afford and the bitter taste of rejection from the man she chose over her family. She became a cautionary tale, a ghost in her own life, defined by her choices and the hollow echo of a fantasy that never was. She ended up working a series of low-paying jobs, never able to regain her professional footing. Forever marked by the HR scandal that she had initiated, she watched from the sidelines as I rebuilt my life, and she was forced to confront the wreckage of her own. Her final punishment wasn't some dramatic, one-time event, but a slow, grinding decline into mediocrity and regret. A lifelong sentence handed down by her own terrible decisions.